Hello and welcome back to BinDR News, and I'm gonna cover this news. You probably know what I'm talking about. I waited a day to talk about it, mainly because I knew more information would come out, and it only had recently happened as the time that I usually record news segments in the morning. So I decided to wait 24 hours. That and I had a really down time after this story came out. But I knew I'd have to cover it at some point, so I decided to read a lot. I listened to a lot, and just wanted to talk about it. So, I mean, you probably know, Texas gunman in Texas shot up a school. He killed 21 people, 19 children, 2 adults. Just evil. I don't even have words, really. It's just what drives people to do stuff like this is unbelievable. The responses to it on both sides have been pretty goddamn awful as well. You know, you really think that issues like this would bring nations together, but I mean, I'm sorry, Yanks, but you Americans, you are not recovering from your divide. You are just not. This just shows it. I mean, you surely can come together on this and say, have a compromise, but I mean, Republicans don't want to move. Democrats don't offer any actual solutions to the problem. You just run around in circles, and it's going to tear you apart. I mean, just look at this. Beto O'Rourke, failed candidate for Senate and failed presidential candidate, heckles Greg Abbott over gun laws. There's a time and a place to talk about policy, but he's the governor of Texas. Greg Abbott is he's given us, they're giving a press conference on the whole thing, and Beto O'Rourke just decides now was the time to do political grandstanding. No. There's times and places to do these things, and it's just, I mean, Beto's he's gonna lose the governor race by 12 points. He's not winning. I put Beto O'Rourke's chances of winning are 1% anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. But I mean, I'm gonna play some of this video. It's from the BBC, but just, I mean, you're out of line. Look, so you can see the subtitles. Okay, so he says, yeah, okay, I don't completely disagree with what he said there, but I mean, why not go out and campaign that? This is clearly he says, I'm going to stop it there because he's just talking to journalists. Why didn't he just say all of that out of the way? I mean, I don't totally disagree with him here. I despised Beto O'Rourke when he was running for president. My God, he was awful. I mean, I don't disagree. He says it wasn't predictable. I mean, yeah, this was somewhat predictable. I mean, a crazed, mentally ill teenager goes and shoots the place up. That, I mean, doesn't sound uncommon to me, to be honest. I mean, yeah, we only had the shooting in Buffalo was that 10, 12 days ago now? It's pretty much the same circumstances. But it's why? Just the Democrats choose to do this? Why not say, hey, we need to... the problem is the Democrats did not try to bring anyone together here. And this is just showing a giant fracture. I mean, the NBA coach, I think he's Kier or something, I don't really know. I don't really know who his name is. But he was crying. I mean, that is grandstanding right there. I mean, he says to pass, I think it's HR 15, which is a bill that passes universal background checks, even though there are already universal background checks. I mean, in such an evil act, everyone agrees it's bad, and we should do something. I mean, I suppose not all Republicans agree to do something, but I don't like all Republicans. I hate most of them. Only like a few. But it's just... And the Democrats don't even try to come and compromise. I mean, neither do the Republicans. Most of the Republicans, I mean. Both sides say what they have solutions to. I mean, the Republican argument I've heard is you put security in schools, which I mean, schools shouldn't be a place for security, but I mean, I live in England. I live in the United Kingdom, and I can tell you that in secondary school we had some random bloke just walk into our school with God, what is it, like a bolt chain? I don't really... It's like a giant pliers. That's the way I always remember it. Like bolt cutters, I think that's what... Yeah, bolt cutters. And he just walked in... He walked... Because we had a school gate, then you had the building, but in between those two were bike sheds. And this bloke literally came in, didn't walk into the school, but walked into the gate with some bolt cutters, cut off some chains of bikes, and just stole them. He just walked away. And then when I was in college, with someone from another school running with a knife. So, I mean, as much as I don't think there should be securities in schools, I mean, even here, you probably do need them. So, I mean, although on an emotional level you say you reject that, it does logically make sense. But, I mean, for some reason the Democrats don't even acknowledge that as a solution. They always just go to red flag laws and universal background checks. I mean, universal background checks already exist, like, everywhere. You can't go and buy a gun. Like, the only HR 15, I think it is, that NBA coach are trying to push. All it would do is prohibit the people in rural West Virginia trading guns between each other. Like, this lending your neighbour I don't know guns whatsoever. Like, lending him a rifle to shoot bears or something. That's the only time. Like, you would have to go universal background checks for that. Like, everywhere, if you go to a gun store, they have a universal background check on you through the FBI. And this kid, teenager, who shot up, I'm not going to say his name because they want to be famous, so I'll refuse to say it, but he had no prior criminal history, so his background checks would have come up fine. And then they talk about red flag laws. I mean, yeah, sounds good in theory, but I mean, look at this, from Buffalo. New York's red flag law failed in Buffalo. Look, just right there. New York, which is much stricter than Texas in gun control, their red flag laws just completely failed. Like, even from Vox.com, they say New York's restrictive gun laws did not stop the Buffalo shooter. The state's red flag law should have prevented him from obtaining a gun. Yeah, so look at that. Restrictive gun laws should have prevented him. So, I mean, it's not to say that you shouldn't try it, but the administrative state is just so awful that even those laws they won't do anything. That is my big problem with it. Democrats propose laws that don't do anything, and then they act like, I mean, I think some Republicans are problems. Like, personally, I'm not a Second Amendment absolutist, but I mean, Democrats refuse to come halfway, which I think, if tomorrow the Democrats introduced a bill that said fund security at all schools, Republicans would jump on board with it. I mean, I think, don't quote me on that, because I don't know what the establishment Republicans would do. I don't know what Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy would do. Those guys are awful. But I mean, you guys your children died and you cannot come together. And it's just why? Why can't you? I mean, look at this. Senator Chris Murphy. Look, I'm going to play this because I find this crazy.
They tried to flee their classmates' bodies as they tried to flee the school. In one classroom, that word was monkey. And over and over through the day, kids would stand up and yell monkey. And a teacher or a paraprofessional would have to go over to that kid. And a teacher or a paraprofessional would have to go over to that kid, take them out of the classroom, talk to them about what they had seen, work them through their issues. Sandy Hook will never, ever be the same. This community in Texas will never, ever be the same. Why? If not to try to make sure that fewer if not to try to make sure that fewer schools and fewer communities go through what Sandy Hook has gone through, what Uvalde is going through. Our heart is breaking for these families. Every ounce of love and thoughts and prayers we can send. Every ounce of love and thoughts and prayers we can send, we are sending. But I'm here on this floor. To literally get down on my hands and knees and beg my colleagues. Get down on my hands and knees and beg my colleagues. Find a path forward here. Find a path forward here. To find a way to pass laws that make this less likely. To pass laws that make this less likely.
This is fundamentally my problem, the whole thing. Like, we acknowledge that kids died. This is completely bad. We should do something about it. Okay, this Democrat, Senator Chris Murphy, don't know where he's from. He's literally saying, he's just said, he's like, just sitting there giving an emotional response saying, do something. He's not said anything what they can do. This is unproductive as hell, and this is political grandstanding by the Democrats. And I'm no fan of the Democrats, and I'm no fan of the Republicans, but I mean, why can't they come to... It just baffles me completely. I mean, look, this is from The Guardian. Who are the right blaming for the Texas shooting? Trans people, immigrants, and victim services. It's like, why can't you come together? Like, what? This is from The Guardian. And I cannot stand The Guardian whatsoever. And this is from the UK. So it's like, even over here, you're just straight out blaming the right for this. You can't say, hey, you can't just put a shoulder over your political rivals. I don't want to say enemies, because we shouldn't be enemies. And just say, hey, listen, we agree this is bad. I know we have fundamental disagreements about the Second Amendment, but I'm willing to meet you. I'm willing to fund securities in schools if you're willing to pass red flag laws. But no, they don't do that. And I doubt it will happen. And I know Greg Abbott has said that they won't do anything about gun control, which I mean, the thing he's probably pointing out is they have all these other... I mean, New York, red flag laws didn't do anything. They already have universal background checks. It's like... Besides completely banning the Second Amendment and seizing all weapons, like, you can't... I know it's sad to think, but you can't really stop it if you legalise guns. I mean, and if the government tries to come in and take people's guns away, that literally, the Second Amendment is literally for stopping government tyranny, which is what that would be. So to get rid of school shootings, you literally have to go against one of the founding principles of your country and freedom, basically. It just baffles me. You can't come together in a tragedy. It's just look, people crying about kids dying. I agree. It's bad. But then you got the Twitter is quite possibly the worst place in hell. I mean, half of the people there are on bots. I'm 90% sure. Like even Elon believes like half the people on there are bots. But the responses on Twitter are just awful. Like they're just calling, like, they say to Republicans, you want children, you are complicit in the murder of children. Like, it's just why I'm appalled. And I mean, this isn't, I'm going to probably do another video on this about why did this happen. This is just my opinion, but my opinion that this is much more to do with culture than guns. Because I mean, there are more guns than people in America. But I know school shootings are quite. I mean, there's fuckloads. I mean, well, there's not that loads, but there's much more than anywhere else. I mean, this is vastly accelerated in the past 40 years. I've decided now. Literally right 2 seconds ago, I'm going to do a full segment. Opinion video on this later. And I'm going to look more into it. But I've been like researching and listening to podcasts about... I've been listening to podcasts all night when I've been at work. But I mean, gun violence has massively accelerated since the 60s. Like, why does it seem to think that like everything bad started in the 60s? It's the boomers. They ruined society, didn't they? But I mean, I think this is down to culture, really, and what we're telling young men. But I'll leave you on this. The Democrats are grandstanding. The left are grandstanding. They do. The thing is, I know both sides don't want children to die. But I think fundamentally is Republicans have their way set, and the Democrats just fail to see that. It's Republicans want security in schools. That does make sense. Like, emotionally, you think you shouldn't have to have armed security in schools. Totally agree. But logically, it makes sense. Even over here, I've had scenarios where security makes sense. But then the Democrats want to do pass laws that have proven to do nothing. Like, it literally proved, like, 2 weeks ago, it does nothing. Well, I mean, it probably does some things, but I mean, it did nothing here, so it's... I don't know, Americans. You better sort this one out on your own. I mean, Christ, to think I want to move to your country. But I want to move to the mountains of West Virginia, live my life peacefully. But just why can you not unite?